Hello, everybody. This is Bret Norman. Today is Sunday, February 4th, 2018. And I thought I'd give a little update before I put out part 6 of Codeword Barbelon. I'm just going to let everyone know that I've been really busy with working. You know, I'm a carpenter. I do finish carpentry. I just did a staircase here in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is about 45 minutes from where I live. And I really enjoy doing carpentry. And, I've got some bills around the house to pay, things like that. So I have to keep busy working. But Jörg Glismann and I have been doing these sessions on Codeword Barbelon. And today we finished the 15th session. And I only have 5 sessions posted up on my channel as of now, and this will be the 6th. So apologies for everyone on my end. I just am running way behind, and I've got to start producing these videos and a little easier. Usually I put all the text in there and scroll in along with the reading as Jörg does it, but it just takes so much time to do it. And when I get home from work, I just don't have enough time to be producing these all the time. So Jörg and I, when we first started doing these, were thinking of doing real-time video editing and recording while we're producing the reading in real time, and then that way it would be no effort practically at all to get these out there. We could just put one picture in there and do it that way, but it's fun to produce videos with the creative parts to it, and that's what I love to do. But if you just don't have enough time to do it, you don't have enough time to do it. So I just want to let everyone know that this is the first video that I'm going to do without the text, and from this point on, I don't think I will be doing any more text because it just is too labor intensive. If anything, I can put the pages up that I have scanned. It's just that then you have to do that in the proper places, and then you have to sit there and edit. And, I'm just tired of it. I need to be freed up a little bit here. Otherwise, what happens is I miss doing things around the house, and I miss paying my bills and things like this, and things go haywire, and that doesn't bode very well. So this is just kind of letting everyone know this is where it's going. So I have almost 10 more of these to produce, and I'm going to start producing them quicker and easier. So hope you're doing great, and I hope you enjoy our Codeword Barbelon Part 6 session, which will start now. Thank you very much. Greetings and welcome everybody to a new video and book reading of the book Codeword Barbelon 666 Danger in the Vatican. Read and discussed by Jörg Glismann of Belgium, host of the program Hour of the Truth, in conjunction with me, Bret Norman. Today is December 25th, Monday, 2017, and I would like to introduce my dear friend and brother in Christ, Jörg Glismann of Belgium. Jörg, how are you doing?
I'm very fine, thanks for asking. I hope that you will have a good night, because you were on very, very long until I think something about 3 o'clock this morning or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when the spirit hits you, you just got to go with it.
Yeah, that's right. And we can record as much as we want. All this has to be put in videos too, and that's what you did, right?
Yes.
So I applaud you for your how do you say that? For your pulling that through, even doing an all-nighter, or going the graveyard shift, or how do you gonna call it? Anyway, your perseverance in doing the videos, which is just fine. And we are here together today for another reading. And of course, last time, as you probably know, dear listener, we have stopped on page 37 that we are going to start to read today. that deals with the Gunpowder Plot, Guy Fawkes and his friends. I would also like to mention something else before we just go into the Gunpowder Plot, but I don't know if you have any remarks before we do that, Brett?
No, please, go ahead.
Okay, so the Babington plot, the Gunpowder Plot, I'm already taking away some of the news I want to tell you right away. The Gunpowder Plot was one of the actions, if you can call it this way, one of the traitory actions that have been undertaken by the Jesuit order to get England in the time back under the power of the Pope. And the Gunpowder Plot was not the last, but maybe the most famous one. A lot of people don't understand that the whole time since the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, I'm speaking of her who reigned between was it somewhere in the 1850s until the beginning of the 17th century, 1603, and then James I took over, James I of England, the 6th of Scotland, the King James that you know from the King James Bible, took over, that there were many attempts against Queen Elizabeth's life, because the Roman papacy, absolutely wanted to get England back under the power of the pontiff, of the Roman pontiff. And we have to understand that it goes much further than only the Gunpowder Plot, what we are dealing here with. So, to give you an idea for your own study, because I would really love it if you do your own research on this stuff, you have to go to check out the Babington Plot. The Babington Plot was a plan in 1586 to assassinate Queen Elizabeth I. So that's 1586, that is 14 plus 5, that is 19 years before we have the Gunpowder Plot, which took place in 1605. Yeah? Queen Elizabeth was a Protestant and put Mary, Queen of Scots, her Roman Catholic cousin, on the English throne. It led to the Queen Scots execution, a direct result of a letter sent by Mary, who had been imprisoned for 19 years, since 1568 in England at the behest of Elizabeth, in which she consented directly to the assassination of Elizabeth. And let me tell you, this Queen Mary that we are speaking about here, you probably all know as Bloody Mary, which is not only a cocktail, which is an actual person, and she was called Bloody Mary because more than 250 Protestants died under her reign at the gallows, or another death penalty that was spoken out against these. Rome was furious after Henry VIII took away the power of the Pope and crowned himself head of the Church. That is also why the Anglican Church never was a true Protestant church. It was a kind of an English Catholicism. We never have to forget that, because there are wonderful Protestants like Latimer and Ridley who wrote the 39 Articles for the Anglican Church. And when you read through these 39 Articles, you will learn that those are far, far away from being really based on the Bible, being really biblically. It is a compromise between Roman Catholicism and Protestantism, these 39 Articles of the Anglican Church. And the point that I want to make is that we are dealing now in the book from P.D. Stuart with the Gunpowder Plot, but the Gunpowder Plot is only at the end of all the plots that have been made throughout the 16th century against England. One of the most common known plot was the Spanish Armada, when the Spanish king was ordered to send his fleet of Armada ships to invade England and to get England back under the power of the Pope of Rome. And that didn't work out. And the Babington Plot didn't work out. And the Gunpowder Plot didn't work out. That is what we are reading about right now. But why am I saying that? Because Rome wanted to get a hold of England, and they did so all through the 16th century, and they couldn't get a hold of England, so then they had to take what was over: the colonies, the United States of America, the later. Because when they couldn't get England to do their bidding of the Pope, they could get the colonies to do the bidding of the Pope. Therefore, they had to separate the colonies from the motherland, from England. And that is why the whole struggle of building the United States of America, this Revolutionary War as you know it, has always been a religious war. It has always been a fight against Protestantism. It has always been an anti-reformational crusade from the beginning. Okay? So I don't know if you have any remarks to that, what I just said here, Bret? Any comments?
You know, the only remark I have, Jörg, is it is breathtaking what you just said. And coming from an American perspective, you're never, ever, ever going to hear this unless you're one of the rare people that listen to Inquisition Update, or you have found our little show on Codeword Barbelon here, or program, I should say. And, you know, this history, depending on how you look at it, you know, most of the world would not look at it this way, would they, Jörg?
No, most people wouldn't. And the problem is that everybody says, yeah, but history is not the true history anymore, and they don't tell us the true history. But I'm going to tell you something else, Bret. Whenever I'm telling this, what I just told you and the listeners here in this video about the real reasons of the founding of the United States of America, which even goes further because it is the second beast of Revelation 13, and by that it got its power from the beginning, from the dragon.
That's right.
Whenever you say that, people just don't want to know that. They choose to live on in their deception that they have because that satisfies them. Yes, okay, I'm not told all the truth, but you know, all the truth is not that important. No? Well, the truth becomes very important the moment the Inquisition gets another foot over there in the United States of America and starts to manifest itself. And persecutions will go rampant in the United States of America as we know it today. Because, you know, in the last broadcast we spoke about the quote-unquote problem of liberal Catholics.
Yes.
That liberal Catholics are not wanted by the hierarchy of the ultramontane Roman Catholic Church. Those have to be gotten rid of as much as Protestants and anybody else who is not in line with the teachings of the Council of Trent.
That is a very, very good point, Jörg. And one that is difficult for most to fathom unless they've researched the Council of Trent. And yeah, I just have a hard time explaining this to people in my family, even. You know?
Yeah.
It's really very time consuming. And I believe that most Americans just don't think they have the time, and it's a shame. But maybe there are some that do. And to those, we definitely welcome you to this next edition of Codeword Barbelon, Jörg, which we are about to embark on. And this history all ties together. And very, very interesting. All of these.
I'm going to start.
All these points you bring up.
I'm going to start in a second. I just want to read to you a little quote that I find very intriguing from the book Rulers of Evil by F. Tapasauci on pages 73 and 74 in his book. And that is why history is so important. It says in Rulers of Evil, most colleges today, and he published the book in between 1996 and 2001, most colleges today are turning out graduates who have studied little or no history. In 1914, for example, 90% of America's elite colleges required history. 90%. In 1939 and 1964, more than 50% did. By 1996, the time of the publishing of his book, only one of the 50 best schools offered a required history course. The day is approaching, perhaps, when the only historians will be amateurs who study history as a self-help, who examine the past in order to make sense of the present and not to be caught unprepared by the future." Unquote. That's Tapasauci. And you have to understand that between 1914 and 1939 there is 25 years. And another 25 years, it's 1964. And he mentioned there that 90% of the people of the students in 1914 were required history, and only 50%, a little more than 50%, were required to do so in 1939 and 1964, respectively 25 and 50 years later. What you have to understand is 25 years is the time of a generation, as it is counted in our world today. Yeah. When we, of course, people get older than 25 years, but every 25 years you have raised another generation. So
Yes.
the generation between 1914 and 1939 has had only almost 50% chance of having a required history lesson. And then, of course, the problem is not only that they are teaching less and less people history lessons, the problem is also that they teach them a history that is not the real true history.
Yes,
Because
like you pointed out in that document that we received. What was that? That one. Trying to remember it now. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't. The one about telling history differently.
yes, from conflict to communion.
Thank you. Yes.
It's not about telling a different history, but telling the history differently. Not telling a different history, but telling history differently. That is in the paper From Conflict to Communion that everybody can search on the internet. That is one of the papers they prepared for the ecumenical movement in the way of the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther in 2017, which is now past us. And
Yes.
I don't want to swerve too far away from the goal that we have set us of reading the book. I will really directly go into it. But the point is that when I make in the beginning the statements of the Babington plot, of the Spanish Armada, and all the other tries they did to kill and overthrow the English Queen at that time, the Protestant government at that time, then you have to understand that the papacy tried everything and the Jesuits tried everything in their hand to overthrow England back to under the power of Rome, under the power of the Pope, and they did not succeed. And because they did not succeed, they had to take a plan into action that they were planning all along. If England doesn't listen to us, then we have to take the colonies and make the colonies ours. And that's what they did. And how they did it, read The Ark and the Dove, but be aware this is a Roman Catholic book written by a Roman Catholic for Roman Catholics. If you do not have the biblical discernment to understand Roman Catholic casuistry and sophistry, and you have no ability to look and read through the lies, don't buy that book.
That's
But
right.
then at least spend the few dollars and support First Amendment Radio. Then you have access to the archives of First Amendment Radio. Maybe Bret, you can put a picture of that right here in the video when we are talking about this here.
You
and
bet.
With your support, you have access to the archives, and there you can listen to Tom Frass read in the beginning, March, April, May 2010, the book The Ark and the Dove. And Tom is stunned when he gets to the third part of that book and sees the connection between the Ark and the Dove on the one hand and Tapasauci's Rulers of Evil on the other hand, which he read the year before in 2009. He read Rulers of Evil on Inquisition Update. So my point is just, when you rely on the official papers that you can get for history teaching, then you are lost. It is not only that in our system people are less educated in history altogether, it is also that the history they are educated in is a history full of lies. It's not the history that actually happened. And it is that important to understand it, because the Bible, which is full of prophecy, and Bible prophecy is nothing else but history written in advance, only makes sense when you can mirror it to the real history that happened. If you mirror Bible prophecy to the history that is taught to you in schools, the Bible doesn't even make sense. And that's what eventually the Jesuits want. That the Bible doesn't make sense anymore, and that you don't believe the Bible anymore. That whether you don't believe the Bible anymore because you don't see the fulfilling of prophecies in the Bible in real life, in history, when you look back, on the one hand, or because you are given a Bible that makes no sense in the very first place, like the NIV or the NASB or the ASV or whatever frauded, corrupt Bible you hold in your hand, because these Bibles are written from a futurist standpoint. The deception is so deep that if you are not built on the rock that is Jesus Christ and His Word, that is the 1611 authorized King James Bible, you have no chance of ever discovering the real truth. And then you will always stay betrayed. And the problem is that when you stay betrayed, you will always have doubts. You will have doubts on God, because you don't know God the way that you should know Him. Because that's what they take away from you. And I say this not to blame you, but I say this to wake you up and to make sure that you understand the message that we are saying here, or that we are telling here. We have been betrayed also for the biggest part of our life. I mean, I'm a Christian for almost 5 years only in my life, and I'm 51. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I haven't been a Christian for almost 46 years in my life. Oh,
and I can tell you're right, spot on. And you know what? I wasn't really even aware of it. It's like this whole thing with lukewarm Christianity, right, Jörg?
Yeah, Matthew.
It's in the Bible.
Matthew chapter 7, chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. Have we not prophesied in your name?
So when you start learning these things, it does set you on fire, and you just start realizing everything around you is a lie. And like today, it's to me, this is Antichrist holiday to me. But you can't just tell that to everybody. They just can't. Well, you can, but I mean, will they really understand your perspective? See, that's where it comes in. Is sometimes it's better not to say anything at all until people are aware of A, B, and C reasons why things are going the way they're going today, right, Jörg?
Well, no. I point out the error wherever I meet him. I have just watched, before we came here together to do this video, I have just watched a video from Dave Flang, who normally every day puts out a video about the corrupted Bibles in comparison to the King James Version. And one of the comments in there said, I am a King James Bible, I believe in the King James Bible. Well, I didn't answer to that and say I don't believe in the Bible, I believe in the Lord who wrote it, but that's another thing. I don't put the Bible on the pedestal, I put Jesus Christ on the pedestal he belongs to. But he said, I believe in the King James Bible, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. How hypocrite is that? So I told him, I took his quote, I believe in the King James Bible. Yes, yet your words that you are writing here are in total opposition to what you are saying. Because you are wishing people a Merry Heathen Christmas and
that's right.
and a Happy New Year in January, both of which are absolutely unbiblical.
Yeah.
And I point this out, and I don't care if that guy attacks me, because he's probably going to do,
Well, it's important to say something in this case, because this is a Bible-believing Christian. I'm talking about pure heathens, Jörg.
But
you don't.
I said to him in the end of my my comment, I wrote, I'm very afraid, but Matthew 7:21 through 23 applies to you. Now, what is that in Matthew chapter 7, verse 21 through 23? Jesus Christ says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Whether you stand on the rock or you don't, but when you stand on the rock, then stand there with both feet.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
you will always give Satan a possibility to attack you.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to go in ranting and all that stuff, but the point is, if you are not fundamental in Bible belief and Bible following, that's it, people. It is not only that you believe the Bible, you also have to follow the Bible. You have to live Jesus Christ. You have to live His word. You have to live His truth. And you have to defend it wherever you go. You cannot be caught by the deception of Christmas. You cannot be caught by the deception of New Year and 1st of January. You cannot be caught by the deception of Easter and all these other holidays they put out there. You cannot be caught by that. If you say, well, but we had every year a celebration on that. It's just a time for us, for the family to come together. No, it's not. It's not. You are actually eating from meat that was sacrificed for idols. And you know it. The Bible says you can eat of the meat that was sacrificed to idols if you don't have to do anything with them, and if you don't know it. But when you know it, and when you are the same idolater, then you should not eat it. That's in the Bible. Look it up for yourself. I don't do all your research. Anyway, if you don't have anything more to say, Bret, or maybe you have, I don't know, then let's hear
Well,
it.
I can't right now because I'm looking in Jeremiah for the verse. I'm thinking of a verse, and
because of the Christmas tree.
Well, you know, Jeremiah is one of these wonderful books that every Christian, every Bible-believing Christian ought to just totally read it, because it, especially in America here, you know.
Jeremiah chapter 7 and 44 deals 5 times with the Queen of Heaven.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, those first chapters in Jeremiah are, you know, I could always benefit from
I
reading
think that
more
with
of
the
this.
Christmas tree is in Jeremiah 10, if I'm not mistaken, but
That's right.
I wouldn't bet my grandmother on it. Even
No,
though
no.
first I don't
I
bet,
think
and second my
I think you're
grandmother is dead
close.
already.
I think you're
but
close.
I think it's 10.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Right.
Anyway,
No problem.
when you don't have anything else, then I think after 24 minutes it's really time to start reading of the book.
Please.
The Gunpowder Plot, Guy Fawkes and His Friends. And whenever you want to make a comment, Bret, then please just interrupt me, okay?
Okay.
I'm starting here with two quotes in this chapter. The first one goes, quote, "The point is clear. The confessions are direct. The purpose is palpable. All the lines of your level are drawn to the center of the powder mine." Unquote. This is Lord of Northampton, the Gunpowder Plot trial. In whatever place of the Catholic world a Jesuit is insulted or resisted, no matter how insignificant he may be, he is sure to be avenged. And this we know. Dead men tell no tales. Ponder well on these things and remember you cannot escape us. The words of 2 Jesuits combined into one. With this we start on page 37 on the book Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart on the Gunpowder Plot, Guy Fawkes and His Friends. And let me assure you, when you have watched the video V for Vendetta or the movie V for Vendetta, and you think that you know who Guy Fawkes is, then you have watched the Gunpowder Plot from a Roman Catholic, with Roman Catholic glasses on, from a Roman Catholic.
Yeah, that's right. Or this new HBO series too. You know that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
will not
incredible.
tell you the truth. Yeah.
How bad deception? Yes. Please.
Now, I have to give a little bit more light here. Sorry.
No problem. Yes.
Every year on November 5th, the English celebrate a most infamous event in their glorious history, the Gunpowder Plot of 1605, known variously in some countries as Bonfire Night, Guy Fawkes Night, Fireworks Night, or Pope's Day. Yeah, Pope's Day. Did you know that George Washington, the first president of the United States of America, forbade Pope's Day? Forbade
Yes.
the burning of the Pope in effigy in remembrance of the Gunpowder Plot in the United States of America? Something you will learn when you listen to Tom Frass reading The Ark and the Dove in the archives of First Amendment Radio. The memory of this important event, the daring attempts of a suicide bomber, Guy Fawkes, aided by his friends, is faithfully perpetuated, but the background of the performers and their purposes are too little understood. Lost in the fireworks, in that celebration. The chief actors and their motives are now revealed. And the first fact we note is that of the 13 Catholic noblemen involved in the daring plot, 5 were Jesuits. So we have 13 Catholic noblemen involved in the Gunpowder Plot, and of these, at least, I say, 5 were Jesuits. Well before the Jesuits' expulsion from Europe, because we know that was during the 17th century somewhere, and of course the complete banishment was in the 18th century, 1774. We are not 1773. We are not going into that right now. But well before the Jesuits' expulsion from Europe, England had already been wise enough to rid herself of the influence of the assassins from her halls of power. On July 3rd, 1580, Queen Elizabeth I, who was a daughter of Henry VIII and Anna Boleyn, issued a statute forbidding all Jesuits to enter England. The Queen was already under general excommunication by virtue of the bull In Coena Domini, and was forced to take even more decided action when Antichrist Pope Pius V, who reigned between 1566 and 72, under the advice of the influential Jesuit parson and his brethren, had some years earlier passed a bull that forbade all Roman Catholics from taking the oath of allegiance to the English crown. Now I have to make a little comment here. I'm not going too far into commenting here, but one little comment I have to make that you understand this well. The Queen of England had been excommunicated. You say, okay, what's the big deal? For every Protestant, it is an honor to be excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church. I agree, but the point is, by excommunicating the Queen, the Pope gives a sign to every Catholic in that country that the Queen is now an outlaw, and she can be killed, and killing her would even be a meritorious work. Can you imagine a queen sitting on her throne between 1580 and 1603, more than 20 years, and being excommunicated? Do we have any other people in history, an example, who have been for more than 20 years excommunicated and still working against Rome? One comes into mind, Martin Luther, who was excommunicated in 1520 and died in 1546. And all the time he was excommunicated. All the time the Jesuits, when they were founded in 1540, but the Roman Catholic Church and the Inquisition tried to kill him. And he survived all those years. And Queen Elizabeth also survived all those years after the papal bull In Coena Domini. She survived the excommunication, and she stayed on her throne, even though that an excommunicated king or queen means that every Catholic in that country has the quote-unquote duty to kill that outlaw. And it is even a meritorious work. It is the act of God when you do that. But of course not the God of the Bible, but the God of this world, Satan. Now, the Pope's thunderbolt, what we are reading here about, from Pope Pius V, read as follows, quote, "The number of the ungodly has so much grown in power that there is no place left in the world which they have not tried to corrupt with their most wicked doctrines. And Elizabeth, the pretended Queen of England, and the servant of crime has assisted in this. This very woman, having seized the crown and monstrously usurped the place of supreme head of the Church in all England, has followed and embraced the errors of the heretics, meaning Protestants, abolished the sacrifice of the Mass, celibacy, and Catholic ceremonies. We are compelled by necessity to take up against her the weapon of justice, and declare the nobles, subjects, and people of the said realm and all others who have in any way sworn oaths to her, to be forever absolved from such an oath. We charge and command all, and singular the nobles, subjects, peoples, and others aforesaid, that they do not dare obey her orders, mandates, and laws." Unquote. So what does that mean? The Pope says in his Pope speech that you earn disobedience to the Queen and everything she says and every law she makes when you call yourself a Roman Catholic, because she is excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church. Everything the Queen does is not in accordance with Roman Catholic canon law. It's not in accordance with the teachings of the Pope. Therefore, he says, we charge and command all the singular of the nobles, subjects, peoples, and others aforesaid, that they do not dare obey her orders, mandates, and laws. By that you throw a whole country into anarchy, lawlessness, because that's what anarchy is. At least in the understanding of most people. Anarchy actually is just the absence of hierarchy. But most people today understand it in absence of law. And the Pope does not accept the law of a Protestant. The Pope only accepts his own laws, and he makes this a very clear standpoint here. The next Pope, who succeeded then Pius V, Gregory XII, exceeded his predecessors by sending a well-worded letter to his nuncio, Sega in Madrid, dated December 12, 1580, inciting all Catholics to the murder of the Queen. Quote, "Since that guilty woman, Queen Elizabeth I of England, rules over two such noble kingdoms of Christendom, and is the cause of so much injury to the Catholic Church, to the Catholic faith, and loss of so many millions of souls, i.e. Protestants, there is no doubt whatsoever sends her out of the world with the pious intention of doing God service, not only does not sin, but gains merit, especially having regard to the sentence pronounced against her by Antichrist Pope Pius V of holy memory in 1570. Pius V had excommunicated Elizabeth. So she lived between 1570, the date of excommunication, and 1603, 33 years under the quote-unquote church ban. Interestingly, Miguel de Cervantes, in his book Don Quixote, also referred to this pope as, quote, His Holiness Pope Pius V of happy memory. The connection with Don Quixote will be made later, and that is something interesting, because many people know Don Quixote as the poor knight who fought against the windmills from Spain, from La Mancha, the great wine region over there, and they have no idea that the whole Don Quixote story actually deals with the Pope and the Black Pope. But that's for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are footnotes here that I didn't see. I think the first one is that Pope Pius' bull against Queen Elizabeth, given at St. Peter's at Rome on 27th April of 1570, cited verbatim in Joseph Mandam, the life and pontificate of St. Pius V. So there you can read that for yourself. I don't know if you can read it also on the Vatican website, where you can look into papal bulls. Maybe, maybe not. Surely you can read this in this publication, as P.D. Stuart says here in this book. And I only mention it because it is another proof that this book is very, very, very well documented. Now, interestingly, Miguel de Cervantes, in his book Don Quixote, I already read that, 1 month after Pope Gregory's fiat, January the 10th, 1581, Queen Elizabeth signed the 5th penal statute inflicting heavy fines, imprisonment, and other punishment on all who harbored Jesuits and seminary priests. Now, there's another little comment that I want to make. I actually wanted to make that a page ago, but I forgot about it. And that's when you speak about quote-unquote Catholic persecution in England. There are a lot of people who try to teach you, yeah, the Roman Catholic Church persecuted Protestants, that's right, but Protestants also persecuted Catholics. Well, first of all, that is true in the sense that Catholics were persecuted, but they were not persecuted on the grounds of their belief, of their faith. They were persecuted because they were involved in regicide. Yeah? They were involved in treason, they were involved in conspiracies, and they were involved in assassinations and overthrowing of government. And that is why they were persecuted, because you have to understand, every Roman Catholic first swears allegiance to the Pope in Rome and not to the country he lives in or the country he serves. Since the Roman Catholic Church is a state and church combined, the Vatican and the woman that rides the Vatican, the beast, the Roman Catholic Church riding the beast, since the Roman Catholic Church is a political institution as much as a spiritual institution, the politics, the political means of the Roman Catholic Church and of every Roman Catholic are only done in favor for the Pope of Rome, a foreign potentate, not the Prime Minister, the President, or the King or the Queen of your country, but a foreign potentate, the potentate of Rome. And since a Roman Catholic has no allegiance with the country he lives in whatsoever, instead, of course, you can take out many of the Roman Catholics in the United States of America who have been indoctrinated with patriotism, of course, and do not even know that they are serving Rome with that also. But
absolutely.
Yeah, but all the other Roman Catholics, they absolutely know that they first serve Rome, that they first serve the Pope. So when we are speaking about persecution of Roman Catholics in England in this time of Elizabeth, as we just say here that Elizabeth, how did she say that here? She signed five penal statutes inflicting heavy fines, imprisonment and other punishment on all who harbored Jesuits and seminary priests. That is only because these people are conspiring against the legitimate government of England at that time. And when you conspire against a legitimate government, then you are what they call today a terrorist. But that word doesn't exist in the 16th and 17th century. That's a new word. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand that the quote-unquote persecution of the Roman Catholics was because of their political intentions. Now, what was the point that I forgot to say a few minutes ago? That is, there were also Roman Catholics fleeing England and coming into the colonies. into the later then United States of America because of their persecution in England. And they also wanted to have religious freedom in the quote-unquote New World, in the colonies. But Roman Catholicism in the colonies was forbidden. And there was only one of the 13 colonies that was a Roman Catholic colony, and that's Maryland. And from Maryland, every evil deed in the United States of America has its root. From the beginning, from the founding of the Maryland state until today. And also that is something that you will learn when you read or listen to Tom's reading of the Ark and the Dove. This is historically essential knowledge you cannot do without.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
And if I could make a comment,
yeah, please.
Jörg. No problem. It's wonderful. I really appreciate all of the energy you put into this, Jörg, because this perspective that we're building up here is the labor of learning true history, and that is from a Protestant viewpoint. And the more you learn the Bible, the more you learn God's true righteousness, and you learn how wicked and how distorted our own lives have been. And we come to repentance, and we come to learn what true repentance is. Then we can just destroy these ideologies that are being built up today, like all these shows that are on television and things like this. They're all built to create a new ideology and to put this ideology against a pure Protestant viewpoint, Jörg.
It is Jesuitical ratio studiorum to indoctrinate all of us with Catholic dogma, with Catholic values, without us understanding that they are Catholic values.
That's right.
There is a very important point that you just made, Bret, and please excuse me, but I have to go again into another mentioning here. And please put the picture up in the video here. There is a video out there that when you have seen this 1 hour video of Richard Bennett, you will have absolutely understanding of what Bret was just saying here. You are being made Roman Catholic without your knowledge, through the indoctrination in the educational system on the one hand and through politics in the other hand. Now, what is that video from Richard Bennett? It is called Vatican Control Through Civil Law. You can type that in any search engine in YouTube and you will find it. I have it, for example, on my second YouTube channel. Maybe Bret can put the picture in here, and we can put the link also in the description box of this video. Then when you click on it, you can easily find it. And this is a video about 1 hour from Richard Bennett, who has been a Roman Catholic priest for 22 years. He knows Pope speech. He knows Latin. He reads every publication the Pope brings out in papal bulls and encyclicals, which all first appear in Latin. He reads them in Latin and then translates them into English and explains them into English. This man has a wonderful knowledge of the Roman Catholic canon law and of the Roman Catholic tradition and hierarchy. And he explains in 1 hour Roman, what did I say? What's it called? Roman Catholic.
It's
through civil law. Vatican control through civil law.
Vatican control.
Vatican control through civil law.
Yeah, that's
Take this 1 hour. Watch that video. Watch it, please, and do your own research with it, and you will understand what he means. And you will understand what Bret just meant here.
Start a channel and upload it and put it on your channel, man.
Yeah.
I did. So, if everyone that is listening takes the time to do some work and get a video downloader on your computer and upload some videos, you're more than welcome to take anything I have or Jörg has and put it up on your channel. And, keep yourself educated, educate others, get the word out there, try a little bit. You don't have to go out on a street corner and scream at the world, unless you're motivated to do that. If the Lord is telling you to do that, then you need to do it. But we're saying, learn what it means to be a Protestant. Learn what it means to have some real history under your belt, and then make up your mind. So that's all I got, Jörg.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna continue here on the bottom of page 38. We don't read many pages today, but I hope that we will edify your knowledge on this stuff, at least. The historian Manfred Barthel, in his book The Jesuit, confirms that in response to what the Catholic Church termed an intolerant act, the Penal Statute of 1581, the Jesuits were entrusted with the mission of arranging for her to be deposed and assassinated if necessary. Manfred Barthel writes, quote, "There were several seminaries to train English Jesuits like an elite of commandos who would be infiltrated back into their native country, England." You have to understand there were a lot of seminaries in Spain training English priests by the Jesuits. Yeah? In fact, things had gotten so bad that Elizabeth, on February 18th in 1587, in order to get back the waves of Jesuit emissaries that were overflowing her country, reluctantly signed the death warrant for the execution of her Catholic cousin, Mary Stuart of Scotland, whom the Catholics had declared the rightful Queen of England. But it would be another 2 decades before the Jesuits would again launch their most audacious offensive against the English throne and Parliament in November of 1605. This was under the tenureship of the Jesuit prince Claudio Acquaviva, so that is the Jesuit general or the Black Pope at that time, Claudio Acquaviva, whose signature, you will recall, is said to have been on the Secreta Monita. You remember when we were reading on page 14? It was said that the Secreta Monita bore the handwriting, the signature of Claudio Acquaviva. Said Johann Mosheim, quote, Johann Mosheim, "All the resources of inventive genius and refined policy, all the efforts of insinuating craft and audacious rebellion were employed to bring back Great Britain and Ireland under the yoke of Rome." Unquote. Johann Mosheim says here in one sentence, which I have tried to explain to you half an hour ago already. Dr. Mosheim will tell us of what took place on November 5th, 1605. Quote, About the beginning of this century, in 1605, 3 Jesuits, of whom Garnet, the superior of the society in England, by the way, just a little bit explanation, that is the highest Jesuit in England himself, that is what we call today a provincial, that is actually what the Pope Francis now, Jorge Mare Bergoglio, has been to South America for the last 20 years before he became Pope. Just that you understand the hierarchy of the Jesuits a little bit. 3 Jesuits, of whom Garnet, the superior of the society in England, not the superior of the Society of Jesus, but the superior of the Society of Jesus in England, was the chief, conspired to form the most horrid plot that is known in the annals of history. The design of this conspiracy was nothing less than to destroy at one blow King James I, the Prince of Wales, and both Houses of Parliament by the explosion of an immense quantity of gunpowder, 36 barrels, which they concealed for that purpose in the vaults under the House of Lords. The bigots concerned in it imagined that, as soon as this horrible deed was performed, they would be at full liberty to restore popery to its former credit and substitute it in place of the Protestant religion. This odious conspiracy which was providentially discovered when it was ripe for execution, is commonly known in Britain under the denomination of the Gunpowder Treason, or Guy Fawkes Night." Unquote. Now I have to read to you a little footnote that states Johann Lorenz von Mosheim, the Chancellor of the University at Göttingen in Germany, in his book Ecclesiastical History of the 11th Century, Volume 3, page 463 and 464, there you can read what we've just read here, tells us that it was 36 barrels of gunpowder hidden under a huge pile of wood in a vault beneath the House of Lords, usually let as a coal cellar, and which had then been hired by Percy, one of the plotters. When discovered, Guy Fawkes had the matches in his pocket, hiding in a dark corner of the cellar. Truly, this timely discovery of the plot was Digitus Dei, the hand of God. And here we speak instead of Pope Paul III when he cried out, "Hoc est Digitus Dei," after hearing the oath of induction of the Jesuits read to him by Loyola and giving power to the Jesuit order. Here we are speaking of the real Dei, of the real God, of the Creator God of this world and everything that is in it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Manfred Barthel.
That would be one incredible study right there in that ecclesiastical history on the 11th century there. Look that up. Read more about it. All right, Jörg, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I had to say that.
Manfred Barthel, in a book that was approved by the Jesuits, and therefore we can see a footnote on page C164 thereof. As I told you already, I don't go to all these footnotes and all these sources, but this book is very, very well sourced and documented. Manfred Barthel, in a book that was approved by the Jesuits, confirms the event just described. Quote, Guy Fawkes, or Guido Fawkes, was an English Catholic gentleman who, with a band, the printing is small and the light is not good here, so sometimes I miss a letter. Guy Fawkes was an English Catholic gentleman who, with a band of co-conspirators, plotted to blow up both Houses of Parliament along with King James I and the entire royal family on November 5th, 1605. The plot was betrayed at the last minute. Numerous barrels of gunpowder had somehow managed to be secreted in the cellar of the House of Parliament. The conspirators, mostly drawn from the ranks of old Catholic gentry, were sent to the scaffold. The gunpowder plot was only the best known and best remembered of a dozen or so quote-unquote popish plots. Remember the Babington plot I told you in the beginning about? The object of all of them was to restore the quote-unquote old religion, means Roman Catholicism, in place of the Anglican state church established by Henry VIII, and, in most cases, to put a Catholic on the English throne. Unquote. Prior to embarking on this murderous venture, the plotters met together at a mass and swore a most solemn oath on the Holy Sacrament, pledging to blow up the king and the Houses of Parliament. And when I read here, swore a most solemn oath on the Holy Sacrament, what does that mean? Have you ever heard of the dogma of transubstantiation?
Absolutely.
They swore a solemn oath on the Holy Sacrament, meaning on the host, that the priest, this little wafer host, that the Roman Catholic priest with 5 Roman Latin words, hoc est corpus enim meum, transfers into the body and soul, blood and flesh, divinity and humanity of our Lord Jesus Christ. That is the Holy Sacrament, the Mass in the Roman Catholic Church. A sacrifice of Jesus Christ over and over and over again, also known as the dogma of transubstantiation. This is what you have to understand when you read books like this. Otherwise you just read, oh, they swore a solemn oath on the Holy Sacrament. Well, what does that mean? That is for them the most holy thing ever. Without the Roman Catholic Mass, without the dogma of transubstantiation, Roman Catholicism falls in itself together like a card house. That's what they're built on. That is their idolatry and superstition. And you have to understand this when you read this book, that this is not just the Holy Sacrament. No, this is the most holy sacrament of the Roman Catholic Church, the host. And they all swore a solemn oath on this holy sacrament, pledging to blow up the king and the Houses of Parliament, together with all the judges, the Lord Chancellor, the bishops, and the officers of state, on the next sitting of Parliament on November 5th, 1605. However, the plot was foiled after suspicion was raised by an anonymous letter delivered on October 26th to a member of the upper house of the English Parliament, Lord Monteagle. That was 10 days before the state opening of Parliament. An account taken from the King's Book states, quote, Lord Monteagle, ready to go to supper at 7 of the clock at night, one of his footmen, whom he had sent on an errand over the street, was met by a man of reasonable tall personage, who delivered him a letter, charging him to put it in my lord his master's hands. Lord Monteagle, a reformed Catholic and brother-in-law of one of the conspirators, was just sitting to dinner at his home in Hoxton when he said the letter arrived. It pleaded, quote, My lord, out of the love I bear to some of your friends, I have a care for your preservation. Therefore I would advise you, as you tender your life, to devise some excuse to shift to your attendance of this Parliament. For God and man hath concurred to punish the wickedness of this time. And think not slightly of this advertisement, but retire yourselves into your country, where you may expect the event in safety. For though there be no appearance of any stir, yet I say they shall receive a terrible blow, the Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurts them. This counsel is not to be contemned, but because it may do you good and can do you no harm, for the danger is past as soon as you have burned the letter, and I hope God will give you the grace to make good use of it, to those to whose holy protection I command you." Unquote. Now we note in passing that notwithstanding what he knew, the hold of Catholicism was so strong over Lord Monteagle that he allowed his eldest son Henry to be brought up a Catholic, and gave permission for his crippled daughter Frances to take the vows of a nun. On his death at his residence in Great Hellingbury on July 1st, 1622, he was reported to have received the last rites of the Roman Catholic Church. Let us revert to Jesuits' doings. The plot alluded to in the said letter was to destroy the English crown and all senior statesmen, and thus open the way for the invasion of the Spanish, i.e. the Catholic army already in waiting. Another Spanish armada in the wait. The request was, quote, that the King of Spain would send an army hither to England, and that the forces of the Catholics in England should be prepared to join with him and to do him service. After the murderous scheme had been foiled, a careful investigation revealed that Henry Garnet, member of the Society of Jesus, who lived between 1555 and 1606, who was then superior of the English Jesuits, had been both a conspirator and confidant in the diabolical plot. Two other Jesuit priests, John Gerard and Oswald Tismond, known as Father Greenway, were also party of the conspiracy. The other conspirators, 11 in number, including the hunchpin of the to the whole scheme, Gadsby, were all devout Roman Catholics. Father Garnet, the Jesuit superior of England, a former student of the Jesuit moral theologian Cardinal Bellarmine, and don't open my mouth about Cardinal Bellarmine. When I go into telling you what he was all about, we are not done until tomorrow morning, and it's already 9:15 here. Cardinal Bellarmine, the inventor of the liberation theology, a person who taught everything that went against Roman Catholicism, but still the Pope didn't persecute him, didn't excommunicate him, but even made him a saint and a doctor of the church. That Cardinal Bellarmine, okay? A evil person, and I can explain to you everything that he did, and I can explain to you in detail the liberation theology that he brought in and why he did that. That, by the way, is the reason that the Pope didn't excommunicate him. Anyway, the sentence again, but Cardinal Bellarmine is a key figure that we have to understand. Father Garnet, the Jesuit superior of England, a former student of the Jesuit moral theologian Cardinal Bellarmine, who zealously defended his students' actions, admitted to having known of the plot. He claimed only through the confessional. And what is taught to you in the confessional, you have to keep for yourself. Well, that's what they teach, that's not what they do. Garnet even tried to link Lord Monteagle to the conspiracy. Nevertheless, he was arrested and tried for treason. But in his defense he told the tribunal that as a priest he could not be held in any way responsible for the villainous conspiracy because, according to him, it was not proper for a Catholic priest to reveal any secret, no matter how criminal, that was given in the confessional box. That's why I said they have to keep it in a secret, because I read to you here, he claimed he knew of it only through the confessional, and whatever secret is told to a Roman Catholic priest during the confessional, he has to keep as a secret. And if you want to know the details of that, I advise you to go to the book from Charles Chiniquy, The Priest, the Woman and the Confessional, and read that and understand what the confessional is all about. Also, we go into a little footnote here. Is that here? Yeah, on the confessional box. We go here into footnote number 10, which reads, "For that reason, Roman Catholic clerics say he was obliged to remain silent about the plot so as to keep the seal of privacy of the confessional." What a diabolical system, this confessional! Is there any vice or crime that cannot find refuge under its seal? How many like deeds have gone unreported, crimes unsolved? Because of it, we will never know. Now you have a little idea why the Vatican has kilometers of archives beneath St. Peter's. In there are all the secrets revealed to people through the confessional. However, a fact worthy of mention is that this same rule, which declared that the facts of confession could not be disclosed when the lives of sovereigns were endangered, nevertheless required its confessors, i.e. all priests, to betray the Inquisition those from their female penitents accused in confession of having seduced and abused them. What an absurd and horrible contradiction that is. Now, we have already gone over a little bit over an hour, and I want to bring it here to an end, because the following is a true verbatim of the voluntary declaration of Guy Fawkes himself, taken in the presence of the councillors, whose names are underwritten. And what it reads, we will study the next time, when we come to the next reading of Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart on page 42. Up to here, I have done my say and leave it up for Bret, not only for closing comments, because I will probably also make a little closing comment, but maybe he has another comment before we close up the broadcast for today.
Thank you, Jörg, so much for taking the time to do this reading. It's always a new journey for me going through this book. I have not read through this book entirely yet. I think I may have read part of this, but it helps once you have some background as to what Jörg was speaking of here. When you're coming to this conspiracy in a mindset that that we've been what should I say? We've been trained to believe that conspiracy is not something that exists, and that's only because we're living in a very troubled day and age, and we've been put through so many different wars in the older generations, and those men, put their lives on the line, and a lot of them died, and the ones that did survive, they had to cope with living with war, having gone to war, and certainly, the Bible says not to kill, so it's a big one. I'm sure that most families have members of the family that have been involved in the battles, and and America is no exception. But thank you, Jörg, and thank you for listening, everybody. I think we're going to close it down here. I don't really have much to comment.
Just a second, I still have something to say before
we
close
Jörg.
Down. When you are speaking of conspiracy and conspiracy theories, I ask you to go to the Bible, where the biggest conspiracy of all is revealed in the Word of God. The Bible is a book that explains a conspiracy that already starts in the Garden of Eden. The serpent conspires with man against God. That is a conspiracy, and you can read it in the Bible. If you don't believe the Bible, okay, but then you probably don't watch this broadcast anyway. Another point about the war, about going to war. When you say, well, all conspiracy are conspiracy theories, it's all not true. I lead you to Ephesians 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against the spiritual wickedness in high places. That is the fight that we have to take on. Not a carnal fight, but a spiritual fight. And to win that fight, we have to take on the whole armor of God. And I read to you last time the 7 points that make the whole armor of God that we should put on. But this also is confirmation of there is no conspiracy theory. There is a conspiracy. It only remains a theory for those people who are too lazy to look at the facts that show the conspiracy in plain sight. And when you are too lazy to do your own research and don't search the facts of the conspiracy theory, then it will always stay a theory for yourself. You know, the biggest conspiracy theory for children is that Santa Claus comes down your chimney and gives you presents on the 25th of December. Ain't that a conspiracy theory? Huh? And you
no doubt.
And you all have been raised with that lie. And when you grew up, you understood all of a sudden that your parents lied to you.
Oh, yes.
The reason doesn't matter, but they lied to you. And they succeeded with the lie. You believed it.
And they even laugh about it. They think it's funny.
You bought it hook, line, and sinker. That this fat guy in a red suit comes with reindeers flying through the air and through a chimney and gives presents on the 25th of December to every child on earth. You believe that baloney? Isn't that a conspiracy? Or is that a conspiracy theory? Isn't that a lie? When somebody tells you that conspiracies where you have factive knowledge of is just a conspiracy theory, that's only because he is too lazy to look and search for the facts. And that's why it is so important to do your own research and to put on the whole armor of God. And that is all that I have to say for today. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for watching, listening, commenting. And thanks, Bret, for having me on and producing this video of our audio we did today on the 25th of December, which many people actually are celebrating as quote-unquote heathen Christmas, Saturnalia feast. But I don't care for this holy day, as they call it. To me it is a day just like another, and I am blessed that I can sit here with Bret Norman connected via Skype and read to you from the Bible and read to you from Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart. Until next time, Jogler66 from Hour of the Truth, signing off. God bless you and bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, Jörg. And yes, this is a false advent that we're dealing with today, and it's just one of those things that as a grown adult you just learn how to deal with, and it's like learning how to put on a mask and play as a child. We're taught hypocrisy at such a young age, and when we get to adulthood, if we don't take and look at that seriously, and that's part of what being born again is all about. So that's all I got too, Jörg, and I just want to say blessings in our Messiah who sacrificed himself in order that we might benefit from his free gift of salvation to us through our 1611 King James Bible. And with that, I wish you God bless you and be with you. And that's all for now. Signing off. Goodbye.